Basically, I'm a naturalist. I love being outdoors, and photography became a good tool by which to make a living outdoors.
John Fielder has been a renowned nature photographer for over 30 years. He's published 38 landscape photography books and is an active conservationist. I got to spend time with John at his new home in Summit County, Colorado.
You know, your viewers should remember three things about winter photography. First of all, related to just the harshness of winter, that we have issues with frozen fingers, but we get used to that because it's really hard to push the buttons on a camera with gloves on. Also batteries. You know, batteries don't do too well in cold weather, so we always try to carry extra batteries in the pockets of our coat to keep them warm in case we need to switch them out, especially with digital cameras that require lots of electricity. And from a light and visual standpoint, this is a very white environment. In the winter, we don't have that color crutch. Cobalt blue skies we do have, but we don't have the yellows, oranges, magentas, and purples of wildflowers like we have in the summer, or the yellows and oranges of leaves and of the aspen trees in the fall. And so we have to focus more on form and texture and shape to design the dominant features, the elements that make a beautiful winter photo. Point and shoot cameras are wonderful. You know, I believe that 90% of good photography is in the eye, not in the equipment. That if you can't see it, you can't photograph it. So point and shoots are great at picking up the basic scene. I still love film. There's certain qualities to film that you can't get with digital, but you know what? Digital is so easy to use that I highly recommend it for most photographers. There's so many reasons why digital is the way to go these days. One of the keys to good photography is understanding light, and light changes from one end of the day to the other. The magic hours, 1 hour after sunrise, 1 hour before sunset, are when we make our most beautiful photographs, whether in summer, winter, spring, or fall. In the winter, it's not quite as critical because the sun never rises very high in the sky like it does in the summer, so we can photograph all day long in midwinter.
John then talked about considering the direction of the sun while composing your photos.
There are three directions I think about. We call it backlighting, side lighting, and front lighting. Front lighting is where the sun is behind you, pointing the same direction as your camera. There's very little depth in front lighting because there's no shadow detail. The shadows are all behind everything that you're looking at. But there's massive color, especially at the ends of the day. The colors are very saturated when the sun is behind you. Side lighting and backlighting do the same thing. They create shadows because with side lighting you have shadows, and shadows create depth in the photograph. When the sun is directly in front of me, we call that backlighting. One thing that happens is we have shadows now being projected by the trees in front of me directly to me. And those long shadow lines actually create a lead-in line, a line that draws the viewer's eye from foreground to background, which is a great way to create depth in the photograph. You know, the most important thing about design and composition for photographers to remember is that we see a lot of things in our view out of our eyes, and we don't necessarily want to put all of that into the photograph. It's chaotic, and what we do in photography is to isolate the order out of the chaos, and one way to do that is to find a dominant feature. So once we've identified a dominant feature, a rock, a bouquet of wildflowers, or it could be grandmother, let's decide where to put that person. And yes, I like to put that person in the middle sometimes because they're very important to me, and I want to prove they're important by having them in the middle of that scene. But if it's in nature, sometimes I like to show the setting. I want to show where those wildflowers of that rock exist in that beautiful mountain range. I don't want it in the middle because in the middle blocks the rest of the scene. Let's try putting that dominant feature 1/3 from the left or the right so that we can see the mountains in the background, the beautiful cumulus clouds, and the cobalt blue sky behind. After we've designed the basic photo, the position of the dominant feature, let's now check the edges of our viewfinder and make sure that everything else in the photograph contributes to the integrity of that scene. You know, I like to call the out-of-focus tree branch coming in from the top right-hand corner or the power line in the top of the scene unidentified flying objects that sometimes we don't see. So my rule is every time I make a photograph, before I snap the shutter, I take one last look all the way around from corner to corner, edge to edge in the viewfinder to make sure there's nothing that is not supposed to be there.
Next, we headed into the field, and John pointed out some key elements that help make a beautiful photograph.
Well, we've got all ingredients here. In the foreground, we have these pretty grasses that are starting to recover from winter. We've got this magnificent 300-year-old fir tree, and we want the fir tree to be about 1/3 of the way. I like using the rule of thirds from the right-hand side of the viewfinder. So in the middle ground, we've got the vertical aspen trees with their white bark is dominant. We've got a fir tree on the left, and behind those, the magnificent Gore Range, Eagle's Nest Wilderness of Colorado, and some soft white clouds against that cobalt Colorado blue sky. Good shot.
It was set by one of the best.
Nature blessed us in this case.
Nature did. I really appreciate the tips that you gave us.
Well, I had a lot of fun too. What a gorgeous day for photography and just for enjoying nature.
Thank you.